Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me. In my series of book reviews, Freemasonry and Satanism. So how did I know to title it that? I don't know. Intuition? One girl I was out with some friends the other day said she was an empath. Another girl I know is a medium, a psychic. So what is the truth? And we got the Bible, Jesus healing people, casting out spirits, demons. And then you got the Talmudic Jewish folks abducting little boys and puncturing them full of many holes, collecting the blood in buckets, drinking it for some kind of ungodly, and I mean ungodly, ritual. The Illuminati apparently have been raising young people to be part of their rituals, which involve sacrifice and sex. And so it seems, transforming from human into some kind of reptilian beast. And the leader they call a Pindar. The Bohemian Grove in California, throwing a baby into a fire under a gigantic owl called Moloch. Go look these things up. Witchcraft covens. I guess if you're going to have the grand ritual, holiday, witchcraft holiday, what would be the ultimate witchcraft holiday? Sacrificing somebody. So I'm sure anybody who esteems to be a witch wants to participate in the grand holiday celebration, solstices. And then, of course, we Christians, we have things like Easter and Christmas. So what is reality? What is all this secret society stuff all about? Being plain. This video is going to be a continuation of this book, Karma, by Annie Besant. Maybe I'm saying her last name wrong. Second president to the Theosophist Society. Helena Blavatsky was the first one. Not quite sure who the third one is. Annie Besant. And then it was Evelyn Underwood in mysticism. I'll think of it. But what's with the New Age? The New World Order? What is with karma? What is karma? I made part one of this book already. I hope I opened a few doors and some space in the brain to think about this. So I'm going to start about 2/3 of the way into this book this time. So I'm skipping about the middle of the book. But there's a reason. It just it seems to have some pretty interesting conversation in it. And we are in a seemingly interesting time in reality right now. In September, they're having a consecration. And I did look that up, by the way, on the computer. I researched it more thoroughly. So apparently, Christians, Muslims, Jewish people meeting in Jerusalem, and other tribal religious leaders from around the world. And for plus or minus 10 days, they're going to consecrate something. So to consecrate is to be serving some kind of deity. To consecrate. So it should, with this New Age and New World Order, looming threats of World War III in the news, this is headline news now. Turkey is invading Syria. Of course, it's all under the umbrella of NATO and the United States secret societies, these Zionist Jewish folks. They have plans for 7, I guess, kingdoms, empires around the world. And the one for Israel is about half the size of the United States, engulfing Saudi Arabia and all those countries. Quite interesting what they have planned. And what's even more interesting, what it might have to do with karma. So page 57, with all that said, there's a lot more I could say, as we all know, from the government buying hollow point bullets, guillotines, building FEMA camps, and having all kinds of preparations or exercises, preparedness exercises for some kind of event. In Germany, in Washington State, the Weather Bureau, Jade Helm, all over the world. What is going on? It's hard to plan your retirement with all this going on. Where shall I live? In the mountains of North Carolina or down by the beach in Florida? If there's going to be a big event, I don't want to be by the beach in Florida. I want to be in the mountains of North Carolina. Whatever, I know that it's probably not a wise idea to want to retire in a huge city. If you're going to get older and maybe weaker and sick, you'll probably be in a rural community and you'll probably be a lot safer. My opinion. And luckily for me, the First Amendment is still in force of the U.S. Constitution, and I have the right to freedom of speech and thought and the pursuit of happiness. With that said, I'm going to exercise my right to speech and read a little bit from this book. First published in 1895 by the Theosophist Society. Facing karmic results. Sometimes people feel, on the first recognizing the existence of karma, that if all be the working out of law, they are but helpless slaves of destiny. Before considering how the law may be utilized for the control of destiny, let us study for a few moments a typical case and see how necessity and free will, to use the accepted terms, are both at work and at work in harmony. A man comes into the world with certain inborn mental faculties, let us say of an average type, with a passionate nature that shows definite and characteristics, some good, some bad, with an etheric double and a physical body fairly well formed and healthy, but of no specially splendid character. So let me read the portion of this again. A man comes into the world, the average type, characteristics, some good, some bad, with an etheric double and a physical body well formed. So I'm sitting in this chair, and we can see in the camera my physical body, but apparently, according to this Theosophist material, the New Age material, I also have an etheric double sitting here, a spirit soul, so to speak, an auric energy field. So there's two of me here. The physical body communicates, sees, and thinks and talks. The etheric double communicates through me through feelings. And when I use a pendulum to find water, give readings, whatever, I'm inhibiting or just letting the pendulum hang loose and asking questions and letting the etheric double control it, which apparently does not have a problem with its memory. It still knows about creation and where I came from. The physical body seems to have that knowledge blocked out. according to this stuff. And I'm not trying to preach this stuff. I'm just telling you what I've learned by reading this stuff. I have faith. I grew up as a Christian Catholic. Not pleased with the Catholic Church, of course. But I do believe and have faith in God and believe that Jesus was sent by God. And he displeased all the Pharisees of the temple, the ruling Jewish people, Hebrews. And so they had Pontius Pilate, the leader of the Romans, crucify him. I guess that's what they did back then. And 3 days later, he rose from the dead in the etheric form, probably. Not as flesh and blood like this. And met with the disciples, and that was prophesied that would happen, and that's what did happen. And in the Bible it says if you believe in Jesus and try to obey the teachings of the law, 10 Commandments, treat others how you want to be treated, you will be saved from whatever Armageddon, catastrophe, 1,000-year Satan demonic rule of the planet. So I prefer not to be on planet Earth when all that happens. I just want to look up and say, beam me up, Jesus, and not be a part of that. That's the teaching as a Christian. But then I'm reading this material, and it has some interesting stuff in it. Some of it may be plausible, may be true, and some of it may be deception. So when we come into the world facing karmic results, we come into the world with a physical body and apparently an etheric body, a spiritual body. And free will is what I have. My physical body has free will. And I'm sure I have good and bad traits. Alright, so moving on with all that said. So, no specially splendid character. I probably just was an average person growing up. These are his limitations, clearly marked out for him. And he finds himself, when he reaches manhood, with this mental, passional, astral, physical stock in hand. So you grow up, you make it through high school, you're out in the world, and you have to start making decisions in life, and you're going to run into a lot of obstacles, some good and some bad, things that are going to be in your life. And you got to deal with it. Your mental situation, your passions, your astral, physical, stock in hand. And he has to do the best he can with it. I don't think anybody will disagree with most of that. There are many mental heights, page 58, that he is definitely unable to climb. Mental conceptions which his powers do not permit him to grasp. There are temptations to which his passionate nature yields, though he strives against them. There are triumphs of physical strength and skill that he cannot achieve. In fact, he finds that he can no more think as a genius thinks than he can be beautiful as an Apollo. He is within limiting ring and cannot pass out of it. So we're all in this limiting ring. A butterfly just flew by. And whether we're men or women, some more good-looking, beautiful than others, some tall, some short, different races. So that's our limiting ring is who we are. And for some reason, there's a purpose why we're put in this particular situation. I sort of believe that, without having to find that in the Bible or anything else. It's just my thinking. He is within a limiting ring and cannot pass out of it, long as he may for liberty. Moreover, he cannot avoid troubles of many kinds. They strike him, and he can only bear his pain. He cannot escape from it. The man is limited by his past thoughts, by his wasted opportunities, by his mistaken choices, by his foolish yieldings. He is bound by his forgotten desires, enchained by his errors of the earlier day. So when you talk about karma, they say your past life does give you some restraints in this life. You're kind of anchored to some of those traits that you inherited, good or bad. And yet he is not bound. The real man, he who made the past that imprisons his present, can work within the prison house and create a future of liberty. So I guess if you study your karma and can figure it out, you can erase the past negative karma to improve the quality of your life. Nay, let him know that he himself is free, and the fetters, the restraints, will crumble away from his limbs, and according to the measure of his knowledge, will be the illusionists of his bonds. Later on in this book, this stuff's going to get very important and be very appropriate, apropos to the goings-on today, 2016, August, with all this craziness in the world. Karma. But for the ordinary man, to whom the knowledge will come as a spark, not as a flame, the first step towards freedom from karma will be to accept his limitations as self-made. So our own limitations are self-made, previous karma, current karma, things that restrict ourselves, and proceed to enlarge them. True, he cannot think as a genius thinks just yet, but he can think to the very best of his ability. And by he will become a genius. And like anything else, learning how to play a guitar, the piano, learn a skill, scientist, engineering, painter, with practice, intent, most people get better at whatever they're trying to do. I've always believed that, and it seems to have worked out through my life. Like starting out making these videos in 2013, I think. 3 plus years ago. And one day I just sat down and said, good or bad, I'm just going to plug away and I'll get better. I hope I have. I seem to get better comments. He can make power for the future, and he will. True, he cannot get rid of his personal follies in a moment, but he can fight against them, and when he has failed, he can fight on, certain that presently he will conquer. True, he has astral and physical weaknesses and uglinesses, but as his thoughts grow strong and pure and beautiful, and his work beneficial, he is ensuring for himself more perfect forms in days to come. So apparently you reap what you sow. So when you do good things with good thought forms, they get out there in space and apparently hook up with some elemental spirit energies that combine with your thought forms and apparently work towards bringing more good back towards you. Conversely, if you do evil thought forms made up with spiritual entities like elementals, we'll get into more of this. I'm just studying the Theophist New Age religion, which is about to be forced on the rest of us. Some of this good, some of this bad, I don't know. I'm researching it. But anyways, if you propagate evil thought forms, and they hook up with spiritual energies, elementals, and then evil comes back to you. So, he is always himself the free soul in the midst of his prison house, and he can hew down the walls he himself has built. So once we become aware of this and start working at better karma, things can get better. He has no goaler save himself. He can will his freedom, and in willing it he will achieve. Be it so. He sinned as a thinker in the past. He suffers as actor in the present. But his friend is not lost. He will hold him fast by love, and in the future he will find him again. Meanwhile, there are others around him to whom he can give the services he would have showered on his best. And he will not again neglect the duties that are his, and sow seed for similar losses in future lives. He has committed an open wrong and suffers its penalty, but he has thought in it the part. So what they just said there is, if you wrong somebody else and they're gone and you can't right it, you can do right things for other people, and maybe it'll come back around and make up for the wrong you did to somebody else. Else could he have not wrought it now. He will patiently endure the penalty he purchased by his thought. So if you think ill of somebody else and hate somebody else, apparently there'll be a penalty coming back at you. And will so think today that his morrows shall be free from shame. Into what was darkness has now come a ray of light, and the light is singing to him. Yo, ye who suffer, I know. Ye suffer from yourself. Nothing else compels. So that apparently is the law. You give good, you're going to get good back. You give bad, you're going to get bad back. And so you can actually control what you get back by willing and purposely giving good, and also willing and making sure you don't send out any bad. The law that seems to be fetters has become wings. And by it he can rise to regions of which without it he could only dream. So once you get that knowledge, you can actually start using it. And remember, in Freemasonry and Satanism, I talk a lot about the occult and witchcraft. So what can they do to make the masses of people do evil things, knowing they're going to propagate evil things, and evil will come back? Or hate immigrants, or hate white people, or hate black people, or hate gay people. You do negative thoughts out, negative activity thoughts come back. And apparently from reading this material, it operates on an individual level, family level, tribal level, like your neighborhood or your town, nation level, world level. You see where I'm going with this? With all that media, news, TV programming, and all that stuff mind controlling us, like programs like Gotham or Texas Rangers, where they portray humans as just ugly, insane, murderous, perverted beings. They're not propagating good thoughts. Do they do this intentionally? Is my whole point, the question. Are they doing it intentionally? Do they understand this kind of stuff? And I suspect they do. Building the future. So when I'm reading this, it's twofold. It's an interesting read, but also it's stuff that they may know, certain laws of nature that they can use against us. Reverse psychology. The Hegelian dialectic. Cause 911 so all the people will believe we got to go murder all the Arabs. Building the future. The crowds of souls drift onward along the sluggish current of time. As the earth rolls, it carries them with it. As globe succeeds globe, they too pass on. So apparently one earth dies and another earth is born, they're saying here. They're talking a lot on the YouTube videos about this planet X. And apparently there's this transformation coming where here's Earth, and this other planet X or Herculaneum is coming. And the two globes are going to come together and merge as one, and then maybe separate again. Some kind of craziness. It's a little above my head, but I'm poking at it. I was watching videos this morning on the flat Earth. A lot of logic there. One of the pieces of logic that works for me is if I went to the moon, I would have called over at Armstrong and said, stand over there. I'm going to take a picture of you with the sun in the background. The earth in the background, Neil. Something like that. Why didn't they do that? Or the earth with the sun behind it. I'm sure that happened if they were on the moon. So as the earth rose, it carried them with it. As globe succeeds globe, they too pass on. But the wisdom religion is proclaimed anew. Wisdom religion is proclaimed anew. And they're having all the religious leaders meet in September in Jerusalem to consecrate something for 10 days. A little concerning here, things going on in the world with all these satanic rituals and symbolism, even with the Olympics, Eurovision, football show, halftime shows, and Emmys and Grammys and Switzerland train tunnel openings. Too bizarre to believe if you're paying attention. But of course a lot of people are not paying attention whatsoever. But the wisdom religion is proclaimed anew to the world, that all who choose may cease to drift and may learn to outstrip the slow evolution of the worlds. The student, when he grasped something of a meaning of the law, the student, when he grasped something of the meaning of the law, of its absolute certainty, of its unerring exactitude, begins to take himself in hand and actively to superintend his own evolution. He scrutinizes his own character and then proceeds to manipulate it, deliberately practicing mental and moral qualities to make something happen. Now, what if people are using this kind of God's law, Mother Nature, natural law, witchcraft physics? There's an interesting word. Witchcraft physics. Science that the Illuminati and the secret society know. Using the media and propaganda to get everybody having homosexual pride parades, and even accepting and writing articles that it's normal for men to be attracted sexually to children, and that it's okay to be killing all these evil Palestinians and Arabs, and to incarcerate and maybe exterminate homeless people. Where does this lead us? Karma? So he scrutinizes his own character and then proceeds to manipulate it, deliberately practicing mental and moral qualities, enlarging capacities, strengthening weaknesses, supplying deficiencies, and removing extra senses, restraints. Knowing that he becomes that on which he meditates. Knowing that he becomes which he meditates. And I'm seeing pictures over there of those Jewish people in the Wailing Wall, the King Solomon's Temple, or by the airport, by the post, with their head and a book in their hand like this, and a little square cube on their head going, You can go look and see the pictures. Knowing that he becomes on which he meditates. And is he meditating? They want to rule the world and the rest of us are cattle and slaves? Do they know how to use this psychic power is what I'm saying. I'm just reading the book here. I'm just turning the situation around. If they can do this, what can they do with it? What if they're evil, like it says here? Some people are evil. Knowing that he becomes on that which he meditates, he deliberately and regularly meditates on a noble idea. What if he's not meditating on a noble idea? What if they do want to enslave the goyim, the cattle, and depopulate the planet because there's just people they don't need anymore? For he understands why the great Christian initiate Paul bade his disciples, think on the things that are true, honest, just, pure, lovely, and of good report. So in the Bible, the Saint Paul told the disciples to think on and to think true, honest, just, pure, lovely, and good report thoughts. So that would be having those things come back to them. And if you teach that to the people versus homosexuality, sex parades, and killing Arabs, and all kinds of other controversial things that anger people and make people hate each other. If you do these just, pure, lovely, and good thoughts, those things will come back to you. But that's not what they're doing to we the people in the United States or Europe or the world. Daily he will meditate on his idea. Daily he will strive to live it. And he will do this persistently and calmly, without haste, without rest. For he knows that he is building on a sure foundation, on the rock of eternal law. So if this is really some kind of cosmic law, which you send out, you get back. And you can send out good and get back good. You can send out evil and get back evil. If these people know this and they fine-tune it, and they're experts at psychology and manipulating we the people with all the propaganda and deception, what can they do to us? What can they make us do to ourselves? Can they make us think things that will destroy ourselves? He appeals to the law. He takes refuge in the law. For such a man, failure exists not. There is no power in heaven or in earth that can bar his way. During each life, he gathers his experiences, utilizing all that comes his way. During Diva Chin, he assimilates them and plans out his future buildings. So apparently when you die and you go back into the higher realms, one of those realms is where the divas are, and it's called Diva Chin. And while you spend some time in this Diva Chin realm, preparing for your next reincarnation on Earth, then you descend into the spiritual realm, and then you descend as a human being born on the planet. So in the Diva Chin third level of reality, he plans his future buildings. Well, moving on with this rather interesting little booklet by the Theophist Society, which has an office next to the United Nations and apparently is part of the One World New Religion coming, maybe. And remember, these same people were publishing the Lucifer Trust magazines, the Lucifer magazines, and books by the Lucifer Trust, later named the Lucas Trust, and they got books like about magic and the coming of the cosmic Christ and stuff like that. FYI. When a man accepts and partially understands the working of karma, he can at once begin this building of character, setting each stone with deliberate care, knowing that he is building for eternity. There is no longer hasty running up and pulling down, working on one plan today and another tomorrow. And they've been working on this New World Order for a couple 100 years. And none at all the day after, but there is a drafting of a well-thought-out scheme of character, as it were, and then the building according to the scheme, for the soul becomes an architect as well as a builder, and waste no more time in abortive beginnings. Hence the speed with which the later stages of evolution are accomplished, the striking, almost incredible advances made by the strong soul in its manhood. Molding Karma, Chapter 10, page 62. The man who has set himself deliberately to build the future will realize as his knowledge increases that he can do more than mold his own character, thus making his future destiny. He begins to understand that he is the center of things in a very real sense, a living, active, self-determining being, and that he can act upon circumstances as well as upon himself. He has long been accustomed himself to follow the great ethical laws laid down for the guidance of humanity by the divine teachers who have been born from age to age, and he now grasps the fact that these laws are based on fundamental principles of nature, and that morality is science applied to conduct. He sees that in his daily life he can neutralize the ill results that would follow from some ill deed. by bringing to bear upon the same point a corresponding force for good. And that's all well and good if people understand these laws of nature or God, if they were only going to be doing good. But as we know now, like the Zionist Jewish banksters control our politicians, and they're doing everything but good. Purchasing guillotines and hollow point billets and building FEMA camps and murdering Arabs and crashing the stock market and stuff like that, ruining our lives year after year. A man sends against him an evil thought. He might meet it with another of his own kind. And then the two thought forms running together like two drops of water would be reinforced, strengthened each by each. So let's take that into a little bigger level. A nation like the United States putting missiles all around Russia sends out an evil thought. A huge, gigantic one, I would guess. And Russia, in retaliation, starts moving all its troops into position and posturing for World War III, creating yet another hostile, evil thought form of immense size. These two thought forms get together, running together like two drops of water, being reinforced, strengthened each by each. Just adding a little bit more to what I'm reading here. If it talks about people, what about groups of people, like it already said here, and whole nations, and a whole planet? But this one against whom the evil thought is flying is the knower of karma. So if Russians were all to get together and pray and send love back to the United States, he meets the malignant form with the force of compassion and shatters it. And the broken form can no longer be ensouled with the elemental life. So this spiritual elemental life forms couldn't combine with that hate form sent out. It would shatter it. The life melts back to its own and the form disintegrates. Its power for evil is thus destroyed by compassion, and the hatred ceases by love. So I think I saw a video this morning or yesterday about Kissinger saying the Pentagon, the United States, is trying to bait Russia and bait China into World War III. Just adding my two thoughts when I'm reading this so-called natural law of the universe. Delusive forms of falsehood go forth in the astral world. The man of knowledge sends against them forms of truth, purity, and breaks up the foulness and charity, selfish greed. As knowledge increases, this action becomes direct and purposeful. The thought is aimed with definite intent, winged with potent will. So I know they had a lot of people meditate in certain cities in my psychic research, and those weekends or full moon periods, crime would actually go down, sending out all that love and thought form. Thus evil karma is checked in its very inception, and naught is left to make a karmatic tie between the one who shot a shaft of injury and the one who burned it up by pardon. So just like in our personal lives, if somebody shoots out a nasty remark or gets angry at you, in your mind quietly think, I pray for them that they find love and peace and that they are okay. And apparently, that thought form can merge with the elemental spiritual reality, and that love will approach them and maybe diminish their anger and help them. Just adding common sense to what it says here, if this is true stuff. The divine teachers who spoke as men having authority on the duty of overcoming evil with good based their precepts on the knowledge of the law. So again, I talk about the occult, I talk about witchcraft. I'm just trying to show in my videos that there's more to reality than we all know. And these people who control our world think about certain things in a certain way, and it might behoove us to be aware of that. They're followers who obey without fully seeing the scientific foundation of the precept lessen the heavy karma that would be generated if they answered hate with love. So people who get initiated into these mystery schools, who are taught to do these good things, even though they may not understand, they benefit from it. Now, on the other hand, if they teach these people in these secret societies like the Zionist Jewish folks that the rest of us are cattle, goy goyim, and we were only born to serve them, and they can have sex with our young 3- and 4-year-old children, as sick as that may seem, go look it up on the internet. Apparently that's in their Talmud Bible. And who knows what's in the satanic Illuminati ritual stuff and the witchcraft covens and Bohemian Grove in California, throwing a baby in the fire under a gigantic owl. Something they called it cremation of care. Isn't that a nice name? And the men, all these old guys we know as politicians and leaders of the world, dressed naked in long robes. I'm sure you don't want to have this thought form in your head. And ship in gay men for some kind of satanic sexual ritual. That's what's going on in our world. Go look up that satanic opening ceremony for that Switzerland tunnel and see what you think. People, skin-clad clothing, looking naked, groping each other. It's one big orgy fest and demons dropping from the sky. You got to see it to believe it. Go look up some pictures of some gay pride parades and tell me if it's not a freak show. I don't hate gay people, but I don't like the United Nations sending out those propaganda, gigantic thought forms to change the whole world, and apparently not for the better. Moving on. Send love their way and conquer them. But men of knowledge deliberately destroy the evil forms, understanding the facts on which the teaching of the masters have ever been based, and sterilizing the seed of evil. They prevent a future harvest of pain. A future harvest of pain. Oh my, so what if a bunch of witches got together and wanted to send some evil thoughts towards some person that they didn't like? At a stage which is comparatively advanced in compassion, with that of the slowly drifting, average humanity, a man will not only build his own character and work with deliberate intent on the thought forms that come his way, but he will begin to see the past and thus more accurately to gauge the present, tracing karmic causes onwards to their effects. He becomes able to modify the future by consciously setting forces to work. So I guess you could run around just bestowing praises and wishes of good fortune to people. If you just did that to everybody, that's got to build a big bundle of a big goodwill forces to come back at you or me. FYI, that's good to know. People buy all these self-help books and maybe we just figured it out. Build his own character and work with deliberate intent on the thought forms that come his way, but he will begin to see the past and thus more accurately to gauge the present, tracing karmic knowledge onwards to their effects. He becomes able to modify the future by consciously setting forces to work, designed to interact with others already in motion. Knowledge enables him to utilize law with the same certainty with which scientists utilize it in every department of nature. Myself personally, I've had two big rules in my life, more probably, but two important ones. Whenever I have it, whenever there's a homeless person on the street or whatever, somebody walking down the highway, I obviously can see they're homeless, I go out of my way and try to give them a few bucks. I remember one guy just looked really bad with a hungry sign on a corner, and I gave him 20 bucks, and he said, "Is that all?" Maybe a little upset. And the other one is when people have done wrong things to me. I've never tried to allow myself to be angry at them. I pray for them, no matter what they've done, and I've had some people do some pretty dastardly things to me. So if any of those people are watching this video, I am praying for you, and have in the past, and always will. I will not let it tear me down. Let us pause for a moment to consider the laws of motion. A body that has been set in motion and is moving along a definite line, if another force be brought to bear upon it, differing in direction from that one that gave it the initial impulse, the body will move along another line. So we all know the laws of motion. If a balloon I threw it this way, and then somebody had a fan over here, when it got in front of the fan, it would change direction. A line compounded of the two impulses, no energy will be lost, but part of the force which gave the initial impulse will be used up in partially counteracting the new and resultant direction, along which the body will move, will be that neither of the first force nor of the second, but of the interplay of the two. A physicist can calculate exactly at what angle he must strike a moving body in order to cause it to move in a desired direction. And although the body itself may be beyond his immediate reach, he can send after it a force of calculated velocity to strike it at a definite angle, which thus deflecting it from its previous course and impelling it along a new line. I guess we've all seen that in those movies where an asteroid is coming and the people are sent up in a ship to deflect the asteroid with some nuclear explosions. So where is it taking us with karma? In this, there is no violation of law, no interference with law, only the utilization of law of knowledge, the bending of natural forces to accomplish the purpose of the human will. Again, comet coming toward Earth, they throw a couple of nukes on the side of it like they did in the movie, and it deflects and doesn't hit the Earth. If we apply this principle to the molding of karma, we shall readily see, apart from the fact that law is inviolable, so the law is unavoidable, that there is no interplay with karma. When we modify its action by knowledge, we are using karmic force to affect karmic results, and once more we conquer nature by obedience. Alright, moving on. Let us now suppose that the advanced student, glancing backwards over the past, sees lines of past karma converging to a point of action of an undesirable kind. He can introduce a new force among the converging energies, and so modify the event, which must be resultant of all the forces concerned in its generation and ripening. So apparently, I guess if you could be psychic and you could see the karmic forces affecting your life, you could probably create another kind of action to counter the action. For such action, he requires knowledge, not only of the power to see the past and to trace the lines which connect it, but with the present, but also to calculate exactly the influence that the force he introduces will exercise as modifying the resultant, and further the effect that will flow from this resultant considered as cause. So again, maybe some people could be very skilled at directing karmic energies, good or bad. In this way, he may lessen or destroy the results of evil, and in this case, they might bring about evil, my thinking about the New World Order, wrought by himself in the past. By the good forces he pours forth in his karmic stream, he cannot undo the past, he cannot destroy it, but so far as its effects are still in the future, he can modify them or reverse them, and by the new forces he brings to bear as causes taking part in their production. So basically just the scientific control of karmic forces. All right. In all this, he is merely utilizing the law, as he works with the certainty of the scientist, who balances one force against another, and unable to destroy a unit of energy, can yet make a body move as he will by a calculation of angles and movements. Similarly, karma may be accelerated or delayed, and thus again will undergo modification by the action of the surroundings amid which it is worked out. So what kind of karmic energies do our political leaders, some of them meeting in public, and industrial CEOs of huge corporations, send out or get by building hollow point bullets and all these other microwave transmitters, HARP systems, and sky spraying chemicals in our sky, putting vaccines, mercury into vaccines and other detrimental toxins that give birth defects and other problems to children, and these Zika mosquito-grown, genetically modified mosquitoes in labs that are causing death and birth defects. And who knows how else they can weaponize these mosquitoes. I'm just saying, the things that are going on in the world right now, let's say the world GNP, gross national product, is 10 trillion. Right now in the whole world, they're spending 9 trillion gearing up for World War III, or controlling the masses with the New World Order, mind control, microchipping, and other things, surveillance systems. This has got to be sending out huge amounts of karma, negative, if this book is true. If this material is true. I'm talking about occult, I'm talking about witchcraft. I'm just studying to get my head wrapped around what is the occult, what is witchcraft, what kind of science do they know, what can they do. This book seems to be helping a little bit. Published initially in 1895. The second published was in 1897. The third one, 1905. Fifth one, 1947. Sixth, 59. So, at the Besant Press, the Theosophical Society, the people who are also, in my opinion, are controlling the United Nations. Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Illuminati, and many other mystery schools of Babylon, the secrets of the Jesuits, the Zionists, the Bohemian Grove, the Bilderbergers. All these organizations. So let me read a little bit more here. Let us put the same thing again a little differently. For the conception is an important and a fruitful one. As knowledge grows, it becomes easier and easier to get rid of the karma of the past. Probably also easier to create some karma for the future, the New World Order. Insomuch as causes which are working out to their accomplishment all come within the sight of the soul, which is approaching its liberation. As it looks back over past lives, as it glances down the vista of centuries along with which it has been slowly climbing, it is able to see there the way in which its bonds were made, the causes which it set in motion. It is able to see how many of those causes have worked themselves out and are exhausted, how many of those causes are still working out. It is able not only to look backwards, but also to look forwards. There we go. To see the effects these causes will produce. There we go. So they can put stuff in the media. They can make people think things. They can make people get angry. They can use microwave HARP transmitters to change the mood of people in a whole city, sending out blasts of evil karma. See the effects these causes will produce, so that glancing in front, the effects that will be produced are seen, and glancing behind, the cases that will bring about these effects are also visible. And in my previous videos, I have gone over those Navy people, I believe, in Washington State, driving around with those trucks with microwave transmitters, testing them out on people. It's in the news. You can look it up. I've gone over it in previous videos. So what were the results, and what did they learn? There is no difficulty in the supposition that just as you will find in ordinary physical nature that knowledge of certain laws enables us to predict a result and to see the law that brings that result about. So we can transfer this idea onto a higher plane and can imagine a condition of the developed soul in which it is able to see the karmic causes that it has set going behind it, and also the karmic effect through which it has work in the future. All right, moving on here. Page 68. With such a knowledge of causes and a vision of their working out, it is possible to introduce fresh causes to neutralize these effects. And by utilizing the law, and by relying absolutely on its unchanging and unvarying character, and by a careful calculation of the force set going to make the effects in the future those which we desire. That is a mere matter of calculation. So they can change the course of causes and effects by a mere matter of calculation. Suppose vibrations of hatred have been set going in the past. We can deliberately set to work to quench those vibrations and to prevent their working out into the present and future by setting up against them vibrations of love. So I don't think they're setting up vibrations of love right now. It seems like they're setting up vibrations of fear. Just in the same way as we can take a wave of sound and then a second wave and setting the two going one slightly after the other, so that the vibrations of the denser part of the one shall correspond to the rarer part of the other, and thus out of sounds we can make silence by interference, and so in the higher regions it is possible by love and hate vibrations. So they're saying right here, it is possible by love and hate vibrations, used by knowledge and controlled by will, to bring karmic causes to an ending, so to reach equilibrium, which is another word for liberation. So maybe they don't want equilibrium. I know they're trying to bring about riots in the streets and a revolution, rebellion by the people. They just can't seem to get the people to do it. That knowledge is beyond the reach of an enormous majority. What the majority can do is this. If they choose to utilize the science of the soul, they may take the evidence of experts on this subject. They may take the moral precepts of the great religious teachers of the world. And by obedience to these precepts, to which their intuition responds, although they may not understand the method of their working, they may in effect in the doing that which also may be affected by distinct and deliberate knowledge. So devotion and obedience to a teacher may work towards liberation as knowledge might otherwise do. Platforms, think about that. I suspect that's how voodoo works and witchcraft works. Applying these principles in every direction, the student will begin to realize how man is handicapped by ignorance and how great is the part played by knowledge in human evolution. Men drift because they do not know. They are helpless because they are blind. The men who would finish his course more rapidly, then will the common mass of men, who would leave the slothful crowd behind as the racer leaves the hack. He needs wisdom as well as love, knowledge as well as devotion. There is no need for him to wear out slowly the links of change forged long ago. He can file them swiftly through and be rid of them, the chains, as effectively as though they slowly rusted away to set him free. So I'm reminded of Rabbi Marvin Anthelman in his 2 books, Volume 1, Volume 2, to eliminate the opate. And that's our belief in God and prayer. Apparently they know it works. They don't want us to know it works, and they're trying to destroy Christianity because they know it works. And they have other evil plans because apparently they're following some demon, satanic, Luciferian being who was cast out of heaven, by the way, and 1/3 of the angels with him. So it says in the Bible. Well, continuing on with this video, from my conversation and my reading and studying, karma's not what I thought. Apparently, it's an emission of radiation energy when you think. And you can create thought forms of different kinds: love, hate, greed, desire, viciousness, murder, just all kinds of feelings. And so if you can control your feelings, apparently when you send out these thought forms, they can be of similar types and add up to a greater sum of energy. So if you're radiating a lot of anger and hate, apparently that's what's going to be in a person's life, versus being kind and generous thought forms, and that'll be in a person's life. And apparently a family, a tribe, a nation, a country, a world. So with that in mind, I thought I'd read a little bit more from a couple books, just a short bit. This new book I got that I didn't read it all, but I'll go over a little something. Try to make my point. Annie Besant, C.W. Ledbetter, Thought Forms, with 38 color black and white illustrations. So apparently people who are psychic can look at you and see a thought form. So let me read a little bit here. Thought forms. Little introduction. The power of thought is a phenomenon for which increasing evidence is being offered by serious researchers. It has been demonstrated that thought can traverse great distances, can affect people and objects, and is indeed a tangible factor in the invisible world around us. The great amount of data in the field of the extrasensory perception cannot all be dismissed as superstition. And it is apparent that to many people that there is much concerning man's nature which is not explained by purely materialistic theories. There is a need to know the rationale of experiences which lie beyond the readily explainable. I think we'll all agree with that. Got to get with the flow of things in my speaking here. It's Saturday. The first part of this video I did yesterday. So Annie Besant, 1847 to 1933, and C.W. Ledbetter, 1847 to 1934, interesting they were born on the same year, were both endowed with unusual clairvoyant ability and collaborated in investigating man's invisible nature and power. In this book, they report on their observations of thought power and the forms which it creates. Both were authors of many books dealing with the hidden side of things. First published in 1901, Thought Forms has been through numerous editions in different languages. It is now published as a Quest book paperback to meet the increasing interest in extrasensory perception and the accumulating evidence in support of its existence. The book is offered undogmatically as a contribution to man's search for understanding of himself. There are more than 50 color plates and black and white drawings. So this page right here is kind of interesting. 5 times 5, 25 pictures. And 25 meanings. So I know how to use a pendulum, and I was curious. I said to myself, which one of these thought forms applies to me today? Because we can change our mood. So I held my pendulum over the first row and asked the question, is my thought form in that row? And it said no. Second row, no. Third row, no. Fourth row, it gyrated, and it hovered over this thought form, where my finger is, with the little red dots. Now, I will tell you that when you use a pendulum, whatever you do, don't use a Ouija board. But when you're into spiritualism or you do this stuff, you have to remember what Jesus said. You have to test the spirits. So I keep forgetting to do that every time. And when I do, when I'm talking to some kind of other entity, whatever, remember I'm sitting here, and my subtle body, my spirit, is invisible body. So we all have dual bodies, apparently. Maybe more. Astral, mental, whatever. So it picked that one. And I didn't test the spirits. So I looked down, and it said this, where my finger is. Jealousy. And I thought to myself, that can't be. So I put the pendulum back over it, and I said, is this the truth? The correct thought form image of me, and the pendulum in Jesus' name? And then it said no. And every time I use a pendulum, this happens. Never get a straight answer out of the spirit world, I figured out. So again I said, okay, in Jesus' name I'm seeking the truth. And I went over the first row and it gyrated yes. And the first one it gyrated yes. And that one is where my finger is. High spirituality. And that would have been this one here, where my finger is. So again, after the 2 incidences telling me I was jealous, so you ever scolded anybody or told somebody what they were doing was wrong, and they said, you're just jealous? So apparently when I was just seeking information from the other realm, it said I was jealous, which I don't see that in my personality. But it was apparently didn't want me to know the other symbol, and probably whatever entities don't want me to be doing these videos. Just saying, I'm using my brain thinking, but why did it pick that one? And then when I tested it, the spirits, it gave me the high spirituality. Again, like you said, you can look it up in the Bible. Jesus said you have to test the spirits. You cannot trust them. So just an interesting thing about that. I'm going to read this book. I'll just show you some more thought forms, pictures. And there's descriptions, what they mean. And apparently clairvoyant people can see these things. So when we see all these symbols and images on TV programming and shows and triangle signs, or all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, and pyramids, from my research, I suspect that our higher selves can perceive something that we, our physical selves, can't perceive. I thought I'd just take a look at another book that I have. Mysticism. I have to read all this. I've poked around in it over the years. Mysticism. What an interesting topic. So I went into one chapter. Mysticism and magic. I highlighted some of the references. Persistent of occultism. It accompanies mystical activity. It does not attain the absolute. It influences all religion and some science. These are just titles. It is based on psychological laws. Its aim is to enlarge man's universe. Its method is enhancement of the will. Modern magic, new thought. We're getting back to thought forms in mysticism. Hermes Trismegistus, 3 occult dogmas, the astral light, antiquity on this idea, the cosmic memory, the power of the will, occult education, the remaking of character, magic ceremonies, agents of will enhancement, address to the subconscious mind, value of symbols. They are instruments of self-suggestion. The doctrine of analogy, its breadth of application in mysticism, in art, abnormal power of the trained will over the body, in religion, in evoking transcendental consciousness, mental healing, purely magical, the theory of magic, its defects, its influence on character, magic and religion, occult elements of Christianity, ceremonial religion contains magical elements. Ceremonial religion contains magical elements. This is inevitable. All right, reading on. Mysticism. It is unnecessary to examine in detail the mistakes, in ecclesiastical language, the heresies into which men have been led by a feeble, deformed, or an arrogant mystical sense. The number of these mistakes is countless, the wildness almost inconceivable to those who have not been forced to study them. Too often the loud voices and strange declarations of their apostles have drowned the quieter assents to the orthodox. It seems as though the moment of puberty were far more critical in the spiritual than in the physical life. The ordinary dangers of adolescence being intensified when they appear upon the higher level of consciousness. In the condition of psychic instability, which is characteristic of his movement to the new status, man is usually at the mercy of the suggestions and impressions which he receives. So they're saying we're more impressionable at our puberty when we're very, very young. Hence, in every period of the true mystical activity, we find an outbreak of occultism, illuminism, or other perverted spirituality, and even more dangerous and confusing for the student, a borderland region where the mystical and psychical meet. In the youth of the Christian church, side by side with the genuine mysticism descending from the Johannine writings or brought in by the Christian Neoplatonist, we have the arrogant and disorderly transcendentalism of the Gnostics. Their attempt fusion with the idea of mysticism and magic. During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, there are the spurious mysticism of the brethren of the free spirit, the occult propaganda of Paracelsus, the Rosicrucians, and the Christian Kabbalist, and the innumerable pantheistic Manichaean, mystery-making, and the quietist heresies which made war upon the Catholic tradition. In the modern world, theosophy, get this, in its various forms, is probably the most widespread and respected representation of the occult tradition. So this New Age, this author is saying, theosophy, which were the initially were publishing Lucifer magazine, controlled Lucifer Publishing Company, and were publishing all kinds of New Age books. And Evelyn Underwood here says, in the modern world, theosophy in its various forms is probably the most widespread and respected representative of the occult tradition. Well, that's a little bit suspicious to me. All right, I'm going to read a little bit more from this book. Mysticism, thought forms, karma. The power to make things happen, to create thought forms which merge with some kind of spiritual entities called elementals. Energy that can be increased, multiplied. Positive energy, negative, good energy, evil. What do the people into these secret mystery schools of Babylon know? What are they doing? What do we believe? What are they making us believe? We will consider here some of the other supernatural activities of the self, which we have already agreed to classify as magic. Is learning how to use karma, the energy that radiates from us, from people, masses of people. Can that energy be targeted, destructive? World-changing, New World Order, New Age, demonic, Luciferic. And learn through them more of the hidden and half-comprehended forces which she has at her command. The word magic is out of fashion, though its spirit was never more widely diffused than at the present time. Thanks to the gradual debasement of the verbal currency, it suggests to the ordinary reader the production of optical illusions and other parlor tricks. It has dragged with it in its full the terrific verb to conjure, which, forgetting that it once undertook to compel the spirits of men and angels, is now content to produce rabbits from top hats, like magicians. So people don't know the truth about reality. These facts would have little importance were it not that modern occultists, annoyed, one supposes, by the abuse of their ancient title, constantly aggregate to their tenets and practices the name of mystical science. Vaughan, in his rather supercilious survey of the mystics, classed all forms. That little tiny spider right there. Or maybe it was a little tiny thought form. Classified all forms of white magic, alchemy, and occult philosophy as theologic mysticism. And on the other side of the shield, the occultists display an ever-increasing eagerness to claim the mystics as masters of their schools. Even the threefold way of mysticism has been adopted by them, relabeled probation, enlightenment, and initiation. Remember, this series is Freemasonry and Satanism. Probation, enlightenment, and initiation. Freemasons. Rosicrucians, Illuminati, Zionists, Jesuits, witchcraft, Kabbalists, occultists, psychics, mediums. One more little paragraph here. But magic is merely a system whereby the self tries to assuage its transcendental curiosity by extending the activities of the will. So if we propagate energy with our thoughts, and they can be positive and negative, that would be controlling the activities of the will if you did those things intentionally. Beyond their usual limits, sometimes according to their own account, obtaining by this means an experimental knowledge of planes of existence, usually, but inaccurately, regarded as the supernatural. So different planes of existence, inaccurately regarded as the supernatural. So they're a natural part of humanity. The fact that I believe I'm sitting here as a physical body, that I also have a subtle body that's invisible. Call it a spirit, call it an astral body, a soul. So when I was born, put on earth, as an infant in a womb, that was the subtle body into the womb. And then the womb, of course, becomes the baby and is born and has the subtle body and the physical body. And people who remember their past lives, even as an infant, probably get a little bit of a giggle, a little funny here, looking at their little tiny arms and their little tiny legs. Can you imagine if you remembered a past life when you were born? And apparently some people do. Now, in all fairness, I want to say that a lot of people believe there's a God and they have a soul. And this other reality exists. They believe in the Bible. And of course, you have the Prophet Muhammad for the Islamist. And apparently the Jewish people have a religion, whether they want to admit it or not. And it's been a big debate. Are they a race of people, or are they a religion? Some people are Jewish who choose to be just like people born in Christian families, decide not to believe in God, and they're going to be an atheist, or they just don't care. And for those people, that's what they choose to believe. Fine. Some people, as we all know, want to take the dark path to life and become a criminal and want the easy road and become thieves and murderers and mercenaries who take money to go kill people, which is what I believe Al-Qaeda is, ISIS is, and a lot of those people in the Middle East and the terrorist fabricated situations in the USA. They'll just do anything for money. And then a majority of the people of the world, even remote tribal groups like Aborigines, Mayans, Peruvians this day, even probably Eskimos, even American Indians, they believe there's a higher power. So I just want to look at a book or two and have a simple conversation about the implications of this knowledge on how to control this radiating force, which can be directed, strengthened, and brought to control other entities and creatures in the other invisible realm. And apparently these entities are able to manifest in our realm. And a lot of people are aware of the topic of UFO and aliens. But here's an interesting book I went over. I'll go over it again, make another video. I think it's that important. Psychic self-defense. So why would you have to defend yourself if something didn't exist? Page 114, I just flipped it open randomly. One occult organization is well known to have been involved in the drug traffic. Another is riddled with unnatural vice, pedophilia, prostitution. A third degenerated into what was little better than a house of ill fame, and its head was an expert abolitionist. abortionist. Others have been involved in subversive politics. Occult organizations in this book, psychic self-defense. Those who join fraternities without properly investigating them, and the credentials of those who are running them, may find themselves involved in any or all of these things. Behind the veil of secrecy, guarded by impressive oaths, many things may happen, and it is therefore essential to inform oneself most carefully concerning the character, credentials, and record of the leaders of an organization. Psychic self-defense, page 114. I just flipped it open. How appropriate was that conversation? Okay, so we have thought forms. We can make things happen in our lives. Probably can harm other people. Harm ourselves. If we don't know and we're ignorant. Keep talking about these two books. Again, right on topic. Volume 1, Volume 2, To Eliminate the Opaque. Your belief in God. People's belief in God. The belief that you can pray and bring out results. That there is another world out there. And these books are just jam full of information of how these Jewish folks have turned from God towards the more satanic, Sabbatan, Frankist, Luciferic religion. And these two books and other information was written by Rabbi Marvin Antelman, Volume 1, Volume 2, To Eliminate the Opaque, and he was the leader of the United States of America Jewish Congress. So let me tell you what some of these occult organizations are into. Rosa, the red cone, Yajik's rabbi's mother, Soviet officer under Lenin, and charismatic leader of Israel's communists, who advocated Viola policy of political assassinations, and how Rabin murdered fellow Jews in cold blood because they were anti-communist. So it says right here, many Jews were murdered because they didn't go along with the communist Jews. If you can get two books, get these. So again, here we're talking about something unnatural, the supernatural. The ability for people to have thought forms created, create energies, directed energies, like science. And I mentioned this earlier, so I'll just mention it again. The Pope to consecrate Lucifer in September, unruly. And we're talking about thought forms, karma, New Age, New World Order. On September 4th through the 23rd, I get dry mouth out here in the hot air. A major event will occur in the old city of Jerusalem. I like to actually show the document when I talk about things. It will bring together actors, artisans, musicians, and persons in media from all around the world. What on earth are they planning to do in Jerusalem at an event that ends on September 23rd? I suspect this is pretty interesting. Maybe detrimental to mankind. Thought forms that will bring together celebrities and public figures. Least we not forget, other rituals. Madonna, Super Bowl halftime show. With the horns. I mention that all the time. But do people go look it up? See what else I got here. I just went on the computer, took a few moments. That train opening ceremony in Switzerland under the Alps. Totally occultic, satanic. Again, a being with horns. Do I need to remind people that the Lucifer devil, if you go look up pictures, Baal, has horns? Another picture I found on that, some kind of devil descending from the sky during the satanic ritual in the grand opening ceremony of that Swiss tunnel. I simply went to Yahoo image site and looked up Swiss Alps opening ceremony, tunnel. So we have our politicians who apparently are in cahoots with these people. Well, I just had a little accident. My canvas lawn chair, the seat fell through. As I was talking about Hillary running for president, almost as if the world couldn't take it. So let's think. That's just funny. With Madonna doing, and a lot of the other football halftime shows, Super Bowls, Beyonce, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, I'm missing somebody. But when they're doing these satanic rituals, and we're talking about karma and thought forms, don't you think with all the people watching, it would produce a lot of that magic, satanic type energy if that stuff's true? Isn't that what a religious ceremony is? As it was said in the book with Evelyn Underwood and Mysticism? Wouldn't these rituals create, if it's true, some kind of energy? Obviously, to me, not positive energy. And then you have Hillary with the Benghazi thing in the trial, or the hearings they had, not a trial. And what did Hillary say? What kind of person is Hillary? What kind of energy does she radiate? And they were talking about the guy who got killed over there, the ambassador. And what does she say? And look at her energy. What difference does it make? We're talking about karma here. Look at her energy. What difference does it make some guy got killed? President Bush. What kind of energy does he radiate? What president would do this while they're taking a picture of him? In my opinion, him and the others completely were aware that 9/11 had to happen to bring about the invasion of the Middle East, to kill all those people, to create a bigger country. And if you even doubt that for a second, please go get this book. Synthetic Terra. It has the details. It's got a page 136, Al-Qaeda. I keep saying Al-Qaeda's mercenaries, paid people. The CIA's Arab Legion. I thought these guys, Alta and Company, were double agents. Former executive, Hoffman Aviation, Venice, Florida, Hopsicle 150. Al-Qaeda and its best-known leader, bin Laden, would not exist without the help of the United States, which created them for the use against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and which continues to support them to this day. At various times, U.S. Special Forces have been bin Laden's valets. The State Department has acted as his defense counsel and travel bureau for bin Laden, supposedly that Obama had assassinated. Webster Griffin Tarpley, smarter guy than me, tells all in this big thick book. I read every page. You can see all my tabs. So here's George Bush giving the world a finger. Let's not leave Hillary out. What kind of karma is she radiating? Is that who we want for president? I think that's all she concerns about. 911. That had to release a lot of karma energy if this stuff is true that I'm reading. We're talking about the occult and magic. And what do the secret mystery schools teach in their initiations where people swear under threat of death not to divulge to the world? Building 7, free fell, was not hit by a plane. Look where it was in relation to the other buildings. So what kind of karmic energy did this here create, such this event that was planned? It took months, years to plan this. Obviously the buildings were equipped with the demolitions. That one demolition expert, Denny from the Netherlands, looked that up on a YouTube video and hear the story for yourself. He was shown a video of Building 7 just free falling. And he was told it wasn't hit by a plane. He said, well, clearly it's demolition. And we have on recorded voice the owner of that building, Silverstein, who says, pull it. So again, all planned, a lot of karmic energy, a lot of people across America and the world didn't know what to think, and they went with what they were told by the government they trusted, and they probably wanted vengeance, a lot of people on those Arabs. And as General Wesley Clark said, you can see many of his videos on YouTube when he was a guest appearance on talk shows and such, that he was told by an insider at the Pentagon they were planning on taking down 7 countries, including, as we're all aware, I don't know if he said this country, but Iran is probably next after Syria. That's a lot of karma, a lot of negative energy. Can't be good for the planet. How about karma etched in stone? What do these people think? So in Georgia, a state in the United States, they got these stones called the Georgia Guidestones. And on top of one of the stones it says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Consider it like the 10 Commandments, but this one is the devil's commandment. So I'm getting back to this document I went over earlier. Pope to consecrate Lucifer in September. So over in Jerusalem, all these world leaders are going to get together and consecrate something for 19 days? What? And if they're going to be consecrating, that's pretty intense. That's like a religious ceremony. Got to be creating some kind of karma. So they want to probably consecrate a one-world religion. What on earth are they planning to do in Jerusalem at an event that ends on September 23rd, next month, that will bring together celebrities and public figures? One part of the event will occur from September 5 to 11, which will bring together Jew, Muslim, Christian, under a passion for Jerusalem, in which they will coexist temporarily under the wings of the Almighty. There's a new age and a new world order, and they're using rituals, ceremonies, holidays. What do you think they have these holidays? And people all go to church and pray, and the witchcrafts people abduct somebody and sacrifice them on solstices and equinoxes. So all this propaganda in the media, making people think one thing or the other, creating hate for Trump, creating hate for Hillary, not good for the nation. Remember, karma is collective. So I looked up anti-Hillary Clinton censorship, and I got all kinds of stuff going on for people to read and get their emotions stirred up. 5,780,000 results. Anti-Hillary censorship. Karmatic energy. So I also typed in, to be fair, anti-Donald Trump censorship. So 5 million for Hillary. You can go look this up yourself. But Donald got 26 million hits, 900, almost 27 million for anti-Donald Trump censorship. So they're trying to censor Donald Trump to a much greater degree than Hillary. Do they really want to try to stop Donald, the world globalist? So it's reported. That's a lot of karma, a lot of energy, a lot of thinking. Doesn't sound positive to me. Doesn't certainly sound like a fair election with all this censorship. Google involved, YouTube involved, blocking the vids, criticizing Hillary, and promoting Donald. So it seems one-sided. They want to block criticisms of Hillary and block anything positive of Donald. Go on Lisa Haven and see some of her reports. So apparently, you talk about karma again. The Feast of the Tabernacles, over there in Israel, Jerusalem, the people who are responsible, in my opinion, like Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his Congress, and if you've ever been in an argument, you know when you get angry, you say something you would not normally say. But he said, don't worry about America, we control America. This is a Prime Minister of Israel. And they're going to have these tabernacle, huge celebrations. These are the people who want to rule the world, and they're responsible for all the mass murder and mayhem over there in the Middle East, and 9/11 in the United States, World War I, World War II. This is the banksters, Illuminati. Rothschilds, the one who made a deal with England, because England was losing the war in World War I, and the deal was called the Balfour Agreement. But they would turn the tide, get Wilson to get President Wilson to get the United States in the war, plus money. If when Britain won the war, they would annex the Palestinians' land to create the state of Israel. You don't think it was intent? Witchcraft, occult, karma. Planned. So I know some more things that's showing that this stuff is all planned. And they pray for this, they have rituals, they have ceremonies, they have terrorist events. Collective karma for the planet, if you will. So in 1946, Palestine was this blue next to my finger. And the opposite end is today, where you can see the Palestinians have very little land left. That would be the one right in the middle of the screen. Used to be Palestine, now it's all Jerusalem. In 52, 62, 65 years, the rest of the world has watched and been lied to, and they keep accusing the Palestinians of launching a rocket so they can go there and destroy and kill more of them and get more land. Obviously, there's a game afoot. It's worse than you think. They did 911, and apparently this is the size of the planned Israel. All that color in the lighter color there on the middle of that chart. Israel, Arabia. So they have a plan from the Euphrates to the Nile, and a huge country, and they used 9/1 to bring this about. You talk about karma. It gets worse. They have a plan for the whole world. And you can see where the greater Israel, Saudi Arabia, and you can see that the world is going to be divided up into Southern Asia, Eastern Asia, Oceania, Southeastern Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Northern Africa, Commonwealth of Independent States and Developing Regions. 10 regions in the world in this New World Order, and you are not going to have a choice, and property rights will be abolished. They're using sustainability and weapon warfare like global warming and HAARP transmitters, microwave, to bring about this New World Order where these elites will rule the world and everybody else will be slaves. Crazy. But remember, it's all premeditated thought process. Bringing elementals all together, these spiritual beings, in an accumulated huge energy force. That's why we have the Madonna with the horns and the Swiss Alps opening ceremony, Eurovision with Conchita Wurst. Look that up. Who won the 2014 Eurovision. Go look up the pictures and see this guy with the Jesus' head and a woman in a silky dress body singing the song The Phoenix Rising with the words "You Can't Stop Us." And Conchita means a female part. Conchita Wurst means a sausage, which is a male part, of course. Look at the karma that would be involved in that. And then I found this other website that was just jam-packed full of information. So there is an evil plan afoot. You can look up that website, that guy's name. I'll just read the first paragraph. A qualifying comment we must make here is that some Leviathan's writings, although he thoroughly exposes the Zionist plan to take a huge chunk of the land in the Middle East, he has promulgated the hoax of the Holocaust. He must know that the Holocaust is a hoax. My question is, why does he so meticulously document the plans for greater Israel? If you look at this thing, Israel's going to be unto itself, right below my finger. About half the size of the United States. And they plan on, according to prophecy, or written in these plans, to rule the world. They will be the aristocrats. And this all has energy and thought process and planning. Karma. Maybe it's just to take our eyes off the ultimate Zionist goal of world domination. The greater Israel is just a jumping off point to them. It keeps our eyes on that small piece of land, small in relation to the wide globe. And meanwhile, the priesthood, karma, rituals, and their useful idiots are busy gobbling up all the natural resources in all countries and mind-controlling the masses to submit with pleasure. There's much more here. More books. Jerry Smith on HAARP. Jerry Smith, HAARP. This is one of my earlier books. Using the Nikola Tesla technology, they have these antenna arrays. You can look this up on the internet. that one of them's located in Alaska. By the way, it's in the news they're turning it back on in 2017. And they can turn it on and create energy beams and bubbles, directed energy, and heat up a planet, heat up an area, steer the jet stream, steer a storm. So all this stuff is documented. From 9/11 was an inside job, which Hillary was ridiculing and making fun and calling people fools who believe in that. The documentations, anybody can get it. With common sense. Building 7 wasn't hit by a plane, and it free fell. Denny from the Netherlands, a demolition expert, was shown the video, told it wasn't hit by a plane. He clearly said it was demolition. Larry Silverstein, is that his name? The owner of the building, one of them, told the firemen to pull it. Anyways, Denny from the Netherlands, days after he said that, had a horrific crash and was dead. So I'll read a little bit more from this book. Karma. The cleansing or the ceasing of karma. Karma brings us ever back to rebirth, binds us to the wheel of births and deaths. Good karma drags us back as relentlessly as bad, and the chain which is wrought out of our virtues holds us firmly and as closely as that forged from our vices. So these people who are doing all these evil things in the world are certainly generating negative karma. And it is accumulative, apparently. And they're having all of us participate in it because we believe. White people get angry with blacks. Blacks are getting angry with whites. They're using divide and conquer and having these energies directed towards each other. The Hegelian dialectic, causing one event so they can do something else and deceive the people. 9/11. And so many others. Sandy Hook. Oklahoma City bombing. And many of these other false flags, crisis actor events. Train bombings, marathon bombings, while they're having preparedness exercises at the same time in a lot of these events, like over in London with the train bombing, or the marathon bombing in Boston. How then shall the weaving of the chain be put to an end to, since man must think and feel as long as he lives, and thoughts and feelings are ever generating karma? This is from the Theosophist Society, the people who have an office next door to the United Nations, and they're into the occult. So apparently this is the philosophy and religion these occultists are into. The answer to this is the great lesson of the Bhagavad Gita, the lesson taught to the warrior prince. Neither to hermit nor to student was the lesson given, but to the warrior striving for victory, the prince immersed in the duties of his state. So these strong cities networks going on right now, plotting and planning against the people. Agenda 21. FEMA camps, 450 million hollow point bullets. Legislation being passed. Plans to move and alter the interstate systems to close rural exits and have train systems go from major city to major city. And with the biodiversity program, you can go look up on Yahoo Images and the internet, more than 50%, much more, of all of the land, like in the United States, will be fenced off limits to people. Obviously, to the slaves, not to the aristocrats who will own the world. So anyways, back to the ceasing of karma. Not in action, but in desire. Not in action, but in attachment to its fruit. So So these people are attachment to a certain fruit or desire, and that's the New World Order. And they're creating all the karma. Remember, they're the scientists in the occult, magic, witchcraft. Lies in the building, force of action. An action is performed with desire to enjoy its fruit. An action is performed with desire to enjoy its fruit. So I'm reminded of those Israelis in New Jersey partying on top of a building with a video camera videotaping 911. An action is performed with desire to enjoy its fruit. So they wanted a video of the whole event to enjoy the fruit of their actions. A course is adopted with desire to obtain its results. A course is adopted with desire, page 70, to obtain its results. They planned a 911. They planned all the taking of the land of the Palestinians. They planned the overthrow of all those countries in the Middle East, relentlessly bombing their buildings and apartment buildings and all the factories and personal property. Go look up pictures. Middle East bombed buildings. It's unbelievable. And there's links there to tell you the particular story of each building, each city, each country. Look at Venezuela. Rich in resources. People are starving. Gold, diamonds, oil, everything. There's a huge study done by the United States Geological Survey of all the natural resources. Huge surveys done here in the United States of all the natural resources, and a lot of them are off limits to anybody to mine or use. The New World Order people dividing the world into 10 countries to compete against each other, like Hunger Games movie. And there's even a huge report, and I have a copy, of the report before Israel was created of all the resources in Palestine. And now Google's taking the name Palestine, according to a press release or a YouTube video I watched recently and mentioned in a previous video. They've taken Palestine off the map, the name. Who made them the leader of the world? Google. The soul is expectant, and nature must reply to it. So these people are plotting something, their soul are expecting it, and nature must reply. So if we're doing kinds of karma to cause our own demise, do we know it? It has demanded, and nature must reward. So everybody's karma, or everybody's directed energy, was not directed at not attacking all the countries in the Middle East, because we believed our government when they blamed those guys with box cutters. We believed an absurd story. To every cause is bound its effect. To every action its fruit. And the desire is the cord that links them together. So there is a desire of ruling the world. There's too much documentation, too many books. This website has everything. If you go look it up. It's on the bottom of this document. You can go look up, they're dividing the world into 10 nations. All this stuff, it's a desire, it's in documents, it's printed, it's planned. It creates karma. So it has to, nature must award them for their fruits. We're not opposing it because most people aren't aware of it. To every cause is bound its effect, and to every action its fruits. And desire is the cord that links them together, the thread that runs between. I'm just trying to explain on this video and others lately, what is occult? What is witchcraft? What is magic? What is this New Age religion? What do they believe? Why do they want to destroy Christianity? Why do they not want us to believe in God? Why are they trying to stop everybody from praying and to actually have a nihilistic attitude? An attitude that's, it doesn't matter. There's nothing we can do. But when we find out here, your thoughts alone are powerful. You can do a lot. You can direct your energy at these people. Send them love and ask God to stop them and change them. Then karma can then no longer hold it. Karma can no longer bind it. The wheel of cause and effect may continue to run, but the soul has become the liberated life. Without attachment, constantly perform action, which is duty, and for performing action with attachment, man verily reaches the supreme. To perform this karma yoga of action, it is as it is called, man must perform every action merely as duty, doing all in harmony with the law. Seeking to conform to this universe law on any plane of being which he is busied, he aims at becoming a force working with the divine will for evolution, and yields a perfect obedience in every phase of activity. Thus all his actions partake of the nature of sacrifice, and are offered for the turning of the wheel of the law. Not for any fruit that they may bring. The action is performed as duty. The fruit is joyfully given for the helping of man. He has no concern with it. It belongs to the law, and to the law he leaves it for its distribution. Whose works are all free from the molding of desire, whose actions are burned up by the fire of wisdom. He is called a sage by the spiritually wise. So there you have it. There's much more to read here. I don't want the video to be too long. I've shown that there's a plan. They're performing ceremonies with obvious insinuations. That's obvious satanic. Obvious satanic, the ceremony for opening up the tunnel in Switzerland. You can go look at many more pictures. The devil actually dropping out of the sky. I've gone over books of the cosmic Christ. Our attitudes think like this. Our politicians have attitudes like this. Sorry when I misspeak. I see my videos all the time. We have politicians with attitudes like this. They're all doing the devil sign. Obama, Bush, Bush's daughter, Jenna, the Pope. She wants to be president. Obviously, this event created a lot of negative karma. All planned as an inside job. They want to reduce the population. There's no mistaking it. It's etched in stone. They're having a consecration, some kind of big religious ceremony in Jerusalem in September next month for a couple weeks with people from all over the world. That's got to be creating energy to be unleashed. The internet, they're censoring Trump and censoring negative information about Hillary. They're having all kinds of events, parties, celebrations. You don't think that creates karma, directed karma energy? Evening celebrations, morning seminars. Communion night. The ends justify the means. Isn't that an old saying? So 1946, Palestine was all green-blue, and today Palestine only has a little bit of green-blue left. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel recently said there will never be a two-state system. And last week in the news, that little place by the water here, it's called Gaza, Apparently somebody launched a missile towards Israel. I guess if you launched a missile anywhere, you couldn't miss Israel. Israel owns everything now. So they're going to be bombing the smithereens out of that little strip. You don't think that was planned? What do you want to... If we don't have World War III soon, what do you want to bet there won't be any green blue left on that map? And they plan on dividing the world. So a new world order in the making. Again, I'll read one more paragraph from this document. Remember the motto we've seen on billboards. Billboards. It's got to be creating karma, sending messages to people. In other places since the United Nations Habitat 2 Forum, think global, act local. It's all being done at the local and state levels of government. And today, our eyes are really off the ball, aren't they? As for anti-Zionist Jews, so there are some Jews that are anti-Zionist. It all comes back to this. They are born to believe that they are the chosen of God to inherit the world. So since they were born to believe that. What kind of karmic energy do you think that creates? Until they reject their false religion, Talmudism, and the Talmudic writings per se, isn't the Talmud the book that says they can have sex with 3-year-old little girls? Including the Torah, Old Testament of the Christians, they will continue to obey their rabbis, creating that directed energy karma. Each thought I have leads to another and begins a book all over again. What a difference between a Jew and a Judeo-Christian or a Christian Zionist. So there's much more at this guy's website. On the bottom. So anyways, the little dot on the map, the blue, is going to be the big white color. And they have nukes. Nuclear weapons, that little dot on the map, Israel. And something called the Samson option. And look it up if you don't know what that is. Please don't believe me on anything I say here. I've done my homework. I wish people would say, Rick, you're crazy. I'm going to go look it up. Then they'll know if I'm crazy or not. And all these books I've shown. But the Samson option is if anybody tries to stop these Zionist New World Order people who control our politicians, the Federal Reserve, the media, the news, media, TV, movies, radio, and they got all this propaganda, deception, beguilement, creating all kinds of different kinds of karmas, probably very little of it beneficial to we the people, because they're controlling what most people think. They're creating a lot of hate and fear. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.